Ladies, gentlemen, there comes a moment in every person's life when the noise outside starts to lose its meaning, when validation, attention, and applause stop feeling like progress. It's in that moment, the quiet one, where real transformation begins. You start to understand that growth doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't need hashtags, spotlights, or recognition. It happens in the silence, in those unnoticed hours where no one is clapping, but you're still showing up, building, refining, becoming. The world will try to convince you that visibility equals value, but what truly matters is what you build when no one's watching. Because in the silence of effort, identity takes shape. In the absence of noise, clarity is born. And in the space where nobody believes in you, that's where you start believing in yourself. This is not about being seen. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to be. Because real power doesn't demand attention, it simply radiates from within. True growth begins in silence, not in display, but in awareness. When life becomes filled with noise, opinions, distractions, and expectations, it's easy to mistake motion for progress. The world often celebrates what is loud and visible, the achievements, the announcements, the constant performance of success. Yet the most profound transformations take place in moments that no one sees. Growth does not happen when the world is watching. It happens when you are alone, facing the truth of who you are, without filters or masks. Silence becomes the space where awareness is born, where you begin to observe yourself without judgment and recognize what truly drives you. In silence, the mind begins to settle. You start to notice the subtle patterns of your thoughts, the rhythm of your emotions, and the quiet voice that has always been there beneath the surface. Awareness grows when the noise fades, and this awareness becomes the foundation of real change. You cannot heal what you do not see, and you cannot evolve while you're busy performing for others. The display of progress may please the world, but awareness transforms the self. When you stop trying to prove something, you start to understand everything. That understanding, that inner clarity, is where authentic growth begins. The modern world teaches us to measure ourselves by visibility. If others cannot see it, we assume it isn't real. But silence holds a different truth. It teaches that the invisible is often the most powerful. A seed grows underground before it breaks through the soil. The darkness of that space is not a prison, it's preparation. Likewise, silence is the unseen season of development. It's where your thoughts align with your purpose, where your emotions find balance, and where your identity slowly reshapes itself. You are not stagnating in silence. You are germinating. The world may not notice it yet, but what's forming within you will one day become undeniable. Awareness is the art of noticing without the need to immediately fix or define. It allows you to step back from your impulses and see the patterns you repeat unconsciously. In this quiet seeing, you begin to gain control over what once controlled you. The more aware you become, the less reactive you are. Life stops happening to you and begins to unfold through you. Silence, then, is not the absence of action. It's the refinement of intention. It gives you the space to respond rather than react, to choose rather than chase. True growth also demands honesty, the kind of honesty that can only surface when there's no audience to impress. Silence confronts you with what you often avoid, your fears, insecurities, and contradictions. It exposes your illusions and invites you to face them with compassion rather than shame. This is not an easy process. It requires patience, because awareness is not an instant revelation, but a slow unfolding. Each day, as you return to stillness, you peel back another layer of who you thought you were and move closer to who you actually are. That journey inward is what makes outer progress meaningful. The irony of real growth is that it often looks like nothing is happening. On the surface, you may appear unchanged, no major milestones, no public recognition, yet inside, something essential is shifting. You begin to think differently, respond differently, and perceive life through a clearer lens. You stop needing validation because you've found understanding. The silence that once felt empty now feels alive, filled with depth, insight, and quiet power. This is the kind of strength that doesn't demand attention. It simply is. It radiates through presence, not performance. When you build awareness, your relationship with time changes. You no longer rush to reach outcomes. You trust the process of becoming. Silence teaches patience, not the kind that waits passively, but the kind that endures with purpose. You learn that everything unfolds in its own rhythm, and forcing growth only leads to fragmentation. Awareness helps you see that your journey is not about comparison, but connection, the connection between who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming. Growth that begins in awareness does not need to announce itself. It shows through your calmness in chaos, your clarity in confusion, and your grace in uncertainty. You stop reacting to everything because you've discovered something deeper than reaction, understanding. Silence gives birth to this kind of intelligence, quiet, grounded, and deeply personal. It's not something you can show off. It's something you live. And though the world may not always notice, it will always feel it. True growth doesn't shout, it evolves quietly, from the inside out. The outer world mirrors the structure of your inner world. Everything you experience outside of yourself, every relationship, challenge, and success, is in some way a reflection of what lives within you. The mind projects its contents onto reality, shaping how you perceive and interpret the world around you. Two people can walk through the same storm. One feels fear, the other finds beauty. The difference is not in the storm, but in the state of their inner world. Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs form the lens through which you see everything, and that lens colors reality itself. To change what you see, you must first change how you see, and that means turning inward. When your inner world is in harmony, the outer world follows. Clarity within creates clarity without. If you live in confusion, you'll find the world chaotic. If you live in resentment, you'll see betrayal everywhere. But when you cultivate peace, life begins to respond in kind. People treat you differently, opportunities align, and obstacles seem less personal. It's not that the external world suddenly becomes easier, it's that your perception grows stronger. You no longer see life as something happening to you, but as something unfolding through you. Every experience becomes a mirror reflecting your current state of consciousness. The relationships you attract reveal the parts of yourself you've yet to understand. The people who irritate you often mirror traits you suppress or deny within yourself. The ones who inspire you reflect the potential you haven't fully embraced. Every encounter becomes an invitation to self-awareness. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the wiser question becomes, "What within me is this showing me?" In this way, the outer world becomes your greatest teacher, not because it controls you, but because it reflects you. The environment you create also mirrors your inner architecture. A cluttered space often signals a cluttered mind. A life filled with constant distraction reflects an avoidance of inner silence. Conversely, when you nurture order and balance within, your surroundings naturally begin to align with that order. You start making choices that reflect self-respect. You speak more deliberately, move more mindfully, and engage more consciously. The shift begins so subtly that others may not notice at first, but the energy you carry starts to influence everything around you. Awareness of this mirroring effect is both empowering and humbling. It means that blame becomes meaningless because the source of change is always within your reach. You cannot control the actions of others, but you can transform the way you respond to them. When you shift your internal structure, your beliefs, your emotional patterns, your focus, the outer world reorganizes itself in response. It's not magic, it's resonance. The outer follows the frequency of the inner. Most people try to fix the surface without addressing the foundation. They chase external solutions for internal discomfort. They change jobs, partners, or cities, hoping for peace, not realizing they carry the same unexamined patterns wherever they go. The truth is, you can't outrun your own reflection. Until you address the structure of your inner world, the outer will continue to repeat its lessons. Life will keep presenting the same patterns in different forms, nudging you toward recognition. The moment you see the pattern clearly, it begins to lose its power. Awareness breaks repetition. When you begin to work on yourself through reflection, honesty, and stillness, the mirror starts to shift. You notice that the same situations that once triggered you no longer hold the same weight. People's behavior doesn't disturb your peace because you found stability within. The world, which once felt unpredictable and unfair, begins to feel more cooperative. It's not that challenges disappear, but your relationship to them evolves. The inner stability you build becomes the anchor through which you meet the outer storms. Even success is shaped by this mirror principle. If you carry scarcity within, abundance will always seem out of reach. If you believe you are unworthy, every achievement will feel temporary. But when you hold a quiet sense of worth, the world reflects it naturally. Opportunities recognize the frequency of readiness. You don't need to chase them, they align with who you've become. The world becomes a field of mirrors, each reflecting the quality of your inner alignment. Understanding this truth demands responsibility. You can no longer claim helplessness when you realize that your perception shapes your experience, but it also grants freedom. You are not trapped by your circumstances. You are guided by them. They exist to reveal your inner structure, what needs healing, what needs strengthening, what needs release. Each external moment is an invitation to look within and realign. The outer world mirrors the structure of your inner world, and when you master the inner architecture, life itself transforms, not through control, but through coherence, not by forcing the world to change, but by becoming the kind of person who no longer needs it to. The world reflects you faithfully, whether you are conscious of it or not. When your inner world is whole, what you see outside is not perfection, but harmony, a balance between chaos and order, challenge and peace, reflection and growth. Protecting your mental space is an act of self-respect. The mind is the foundation upon which every part of your life is built. The clarity of your thoughts, the balance of your emotions, and the energy you bring into each day all depend on the quality of your mental environment. Yet most people guard their possessions more carefully than they guard their peace. They allow every distraction, every opinion, and every form of negativity to occupy space in their minds, unaware that each intrusion weakens their focus and drains their strength. Protecting your mental space is not selfish, it is essential. It is how you preserve the integrity of your thoughts and maintain ownership of your inner world. Every piece of information you consume shapes you in subtle ways. The conversations you entertain, the media you absorb, the people you spend time with, all of these form the mental landscape you live in. When you allow everything in, you blur the boundaries of who you are. Your mind becomes crowded with the noise of others' emotions, ambitions, and fears. You begin to react instead of reflect, imitate instead of create. Protecting your mental space means drawing a line between what deserves your attention and what does not. It means realizing that mental clutter is as damaging as physical clutter, both suffocate clarity. Respecting your mind also means learning to say no without guilt. Every yes to something meaningless is a no to something that truly matters. When you protect your mental space, you no longer give away your focus carelessly. You stop explaining your need for quiet, for solitude, for boundaries. You begin to understand that silence is not avoidance, it's maintenance. You're preserving the conditions in which your thoughts can grow clear and your creativity can flourish. The world is full of noise designed to keep you distracted and emotionally entangled. Choosing stillness becomes a radical act of self-awareness. Protecting your mental space also involves observing what triggers unrest within you. It means noticing how certain conversations drain you, how some environments dull your energy, and how specific habits blur your focus. The goal isn't to escape life, it's to navigate it consciously. You learn to engage selectively, to be present without being consumed. This level of awareness transforms the quality of your interactions. You listen without absorbing, respond without reacting, and care without losing yourself in others' chaos. That is not indifference, it's maturity. The people you surround yourself with are reflections of the energy you tolerate. Some will inspire you, while others will pull you back into confusion and self-doubt. Protecting your mental space means recognizing the difference. You don't need to fight or argue to protect your peace. You simply choose distance where your clarity is at risk. Energy is contagious. Spend time around calm people, and you'll feel grounded. Spend time around chaos, and you'll feel disoriented. The more you value your peace, the more you'll attract people who value it too. Technology has made this boundary even more vital. Every notification, every post, every piece of digital noise competes for a piece of your attention. The more scattered your focus, the weaker your sense of self becomes. Protecting your mental space now means curating what you consume, choosing depth over distraction, purpose over popularity. You begin to treat your attention like a currency, spending it only on what truly adds value to your growth. It's not about isolation, it's about direction. You can't move forward clearly if your mind is pulled in 100 directions at once. The practice of protecting your mind also requires internal discipline. It's not just about what you block out, but also about what you allow to stay. Your own thoughts can be the biggest intruders if left unchecked. Self-criticism, doubt, and fear can occupy more space than any external noise. Respecting your mind means addressing these inner voices with awareness, not submission. You learn to question their origin. Are these thoughts truly yours, or echoes of someone else's belief? The more you understand your inner dialogue, the less control it has over you. There's a quiet power in deciding what you allow to affect you. You stop reacting to everything that happens and start responding from a centered place. You realize that not every battle deserves your energy, not every comment deserves your attention, and not every event deserves a reaction. The discipline of selective engagement frees your mind from unnecessary turmoil. It gives you space to think, to create, to simply be. Over time, protecting your mental space becomes second nature, not an act of resistance, but a state of alignment. You begin to live with intention rather than impulse. The noise of the world still exists, but it no longer owns you. You observe it without absorbing it. You learn that your peace is not something to be found, it's something to be preserved. Each boundary you set, each moment of silence you choose, each distraction you decline, these are quiet declarations of self-respect. You are saying to yourself and to the world, my mind is sacred, and I will not allow it to be polluted. In that protection, you rediscover your strength, your clarity, and your sense of direction. What you allow into your mind becomes the architect of your reality. Every thought, every image, every word you absorb lays a brick in the structure of your inner world. Over time, those small, seemingly insignificant pieces of information combine to create the framework through which you perceive everything. The mind does not simply record reality, it builds it. It takes the material you feed it and constructs a version of life that matches what you repeatedly allow in. This is why two people can live in the same world, yet experience it so differently. The difference lies not in their surroundings, but in the architecture of their thoughts. What enters your mind does not vanish, it settles. It shapes your beliefs, your emotions, and your sense of possibility. Allow enough negativity in, and your reality begins to shrink. Fill your mind with doubt, and the world begins to feel hostile. But fill it with clarity, purpose, and curiosity, and the same world starts to expand with opportunity. The mind is a living space, constantly under construction, and you are both its builder and its inhabitant. If the foundation is weak, every challenge feels heavier. If the foundation is strong, even the storms of life cannot shake you. Every form of input has an influence. The conversations you entertain, the media you consume, the people you admire, all of them contribute to the design of your inner structure. Words are not just sounds, they are seeds. The ideas you allow to take root eventually bloom into your experiences. If you constantly listen to voices that reinforce fear, you begin to see threats everywhere. If you engage with ideas that encourage growth, you begin to perceive possibilities where others see limits. This is why protecting your mental diet is one of the most important acts of self-awareness. You cannot expect peace while feeding your mind with chaos. The mind does not differentiate between what is real and what is imagined, it reacts to both. When you visualize success, your mind begins to align your actions toward it. When you dwell on failure, your mind prepares you to live it. Every mental image sends instructions to your nervous system, influencing how you move, speak, and respond. Your reality is, in many ways, the external expression of your inner expectations. The stories you tell yourself become the blueprints of your life. If those stories are filled with limitation, then no amount of external change can set you free. Real freedom begins in thought. Many people underestimate how deeply their surroundings feed their minds. A single conversation can plant a belief that shapes a lifetime. The content you scroll through, the voices you listen to, the opinions you accept, they all build invisible walls or open unseen doors. Over time, the cumulative effect of what you consume defines what you believe to be possible. This is why awareness is critical. Every idea you allow in has the potential to either construct or corrupt the reality you live in. To live consciously means to choose what you internalize and what you release. Your emotions also act as builders. What you focus on emotionally gathers momentum in your inner world. Anger builds tension, gratitude builds stability, fear builds caution, and hope builds resilience. The structure of your reality depends on which emotions you repeatedly reinforce. Each time you revisit a thought, you strengthen its foundation. Each time you let go of a thought, you weaken its hold. Slowly, the architecture of your reality shifts to mirror the quality of your attention. This is not abstract philosophy, it's how human consciousness functions. Energy follows focus, and focus shapes form. The mind is also impressionable. When you let others dictate what you should think or believe, you hand them the tools to build your reality for you. You start living in a mental structure that isn't yours, one made from someone else's fears, ambitions, or desires. To reclaim authorship of your reality, you must reclaim authority over your mind. You must learn to question what enters it, to examine whether a thought strengthens or weakens you. Each moment of discernment is a moment of construction done consciously rather than by default. Even silence influences the architecture of your inner world. When you withdraw from constant input, the mind begins to reorganize itself. Old beliefs surface, unprocessed emotions reveal themselves, and mental clutter starts to clear. In that stillness, you begin to rebuild consciously. You start choosing thoughts that align with who you want to become instead of repeating those that belong to who you once were. The process is not instant. Architecture takes time. But as you shape your inner landscape, your outer experiences begin to reflect the shift. What you allow into your mind is not just information, it is instruction. It tells your consciousness how to perceive, how to interpret, and ultimately how to live. Every piece of input either supports or destabilizes the structure you inhabit. The difference between chaos and clarity often lies in the boundaries you set for your own thoughts. When you become intentional about what you allow in, your life begins to follow the design of that intention. You stop reacting to the randomness of the world and start living in alignment with a reality built deliberately from within. Discipline is not restriction. It is the freedom to act from clarity. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as limitation, as a set of rules that confine, suppress, or control. But in truth, discipline is what releases you from confusion and chaos. It is not a chain that binds. It is the structure that allows you to move freely with direction. Without discipline, life becomes a reaction to impulses, to moods, to external circumstances. With it, you gain the ability to choose with purpose rather than drift without awareness. Discipline is the invisible force that gives shape to your potential. It turns intention into reality and desire into achievement. Clarity is what makes discipline meaningful. When you are clear about what matters, discipline stops feeling like sacrifice. It becomes an act of alignment. You no longer follow routines because you have to, you follow them because they lead you where you truly want to go. Every deliberate act becomes a statement of who you are choosing to be. The clearer you become about your direction, the more naturally discipline arises. It is not born from pressure, it is born from understanding. When you know your purpose, restraint feels less like denial and more like devotion to your higher path. The absence of discipline may look like freedom, but it's often the opposite. When you live without structure, you become controlled by your impulses. You spend energy chasing distractions, reacting to moods, and making inconsistent decisions that fragment your focus. There's no stability, no inner rhythm. Each day feels like starting over. True freedom does not come from doing whatever you want. It comes from being able to do what is necessary even when you don't want to. Discipline gives you that power, the ability to act beyond emotion, to keep moving even when motivation fades. In its essence, discipline is a conversation between the present self and the future self. The present self seeks comfort. The future self seeks fulfillment. Every disciplined choice is a small act of respect toward the person you are becoming. You say no to temporary ease in service of long-term strength. You sacrifice distraction for focus, indulgence for growth, noise for stillness. Over time, these small decisions compound into transformation. What once required effort becomes effortless. What once felt forced becomes natural. The habits built through discipline eventually become the character through which your life unfolds. Discipline also sharpens perception. It teaches you to see beyond impulse and to act with awareness. When you commit to consistency, whether in work, health, or learning, you develop the ability to observe your thoughts rather than obey them. You begin to recognize how emotion rises and falls, how resistance appears, and how excuses disguise themselves as logic. This awareness is freedom. You are no longer controlled by the temporary waves of your mind because you've built an anchor through discipline. The more consistent you are, the quieter the noise becomes. Clarity emerges not because the world simplifies, but because your focus strengthens. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, discipline is a quiet rebellion. It is the decision to slow down when everything demands speed. It's choosing depth over distraction, substance over image. While others chase validation, the disciplined person builds silently, one deliberate action at a time. Their growth may be unseen at first, but it is steady, and when it finally shows, it cannot be ignored. Discipline does not seek attention. It creates results that speak for themselves. The freedom it brings is not loud, it's calm, grounded, and enduring. There is also a profound peace in disciplined living. When you have structure, uncertainty loses its power. You no longer wake up wondering what to do. You already know. Your time has purpose, and your energy has direction. You stop scattering your attention across meaningless pursuits and begin to live with presence. This does not mean rigidity or perfection. Discipline allows room for rest, reflection, and even failure. It simply means that your choices are intentional, that you return to your path each time life pulls you off course. That return, again and again, is what builds strength. Discipline refines the mind in the same way training refines the body. It burns away weakness, sharpens awareness, and builds resilience. The process is often uncomfortable, but it transforms how you experience life. Instead of being overwhelmed by challenges, you learn to work through them methodically. Instead of giving in to distraction, you recognize it for what it is: resistance to growth. The discipline you practice externally becomes a reflection of the order you cultivate internally. As your actions align, so does your perception. You begin to see yourself not as someone who needs control, but as someone who already possesses it. The paradox of discipline is that the more structure you create, the more space you find within it. Routines that once felt restrictive become pathways for flow. Boundaries that once felt limiting become gateways to clarity. You stop fighting with yourself and start cooperating with your own potential. In this cooperation lies the purest form of freedom, the freedom to act from awareness, to live with purpose, and to move with quiet strength. Discipline, then, is not a cage. It is the design that gives shape to your power, allowing you to live by choice rather than by chance. Quiet consistency creates more transformation than loud effort. In a world that glorifies intensity and dramatic breakthroughs, it's easy to forget that true change rarely arrives in a burst of noise. Real transformation happens quietly in the repetition of small acts, in the patience of steady movement, in the invisible moments when no one is watching. Loud effort often burns bright but fades quickly. Quiet consistency builds slowly but endures. It's the steady rhythm of showing up every day that turns intention into reality. When you choose consistency over spectacle, you align your actions with a deeper kind of strength, one that doesn't depend on external recognition, but on internal commitment. Quiet consistency is not about doing everything perfectly. It's about not giving up when it feels ordinary. Progress, when genuine, rarely looks glamorous. It often hides beneath the surface, taking form in subtle ways, in sharper focus, in greater calm, in increased patience. Transformation begins to take root the moment you decide to keep going even when enthusiasm fades. The loud beginnings may inspire, but it's the quiet continuance that builds something lasting. Each repeated action, no matter how small, adds another layer to your foundation until what once required effort becomes second nature. Loud effort is often fueled by emotion, a surge of motivation, a moment of excitement, or the pressure to prove something. It comes with a rush, but it also carries the tendency to exhaust itself. Consistency, on the other hand, is rooted in clarity. It doesn't rely on mood, it relies on choice. It's the decision to act, not because you feel like it, but because you've committed to it. Quiet consistency strips away the drama of progress and replaces it with devotion to the process. You don't chase quick wins, you cultivate long-term change. The transformation it brings may move slowly, but it moves deeply, reshaping not just results but identity. When you act consistently, you train your mind to trust yourself. Each time you keep a promise, no matter how small, you build self-respect. You begin to see that your word holds power, that you can depend on your own effort even when motivation fades. This internal trust becomes the fuel for further growth. You stop seeking validation through intensity and begin finding peace in steady movement. The noise of comparison fades because your focus shifts inward toward mastery, discipline, and quiet persistence. Quiet consistency also teaches patience, an essential ingredient for real transformation. It reminds you that everything worthwhile takes time to mature. A seed doesn't rush its growth, it simply remains faithful to the process. In the same way, your efforts need time to deepen and take root. Impatience makes people abandon their progress before it has the chance to unfold. The loud performer wants immediate proof. The quietly consistent one understands that silence is often the space where change is forming. What feels stagnant today might be the unseen foundation of tomorrow's breakthrough. There's also a kind of humility in quiet consistency. It requires you to show up without needing attention or reward. You do the work for its own sake, trusting that the results will come when they're ready. This humility keeps you grounded. It frees you from the anxiety of needing to be seen, from the insecurity of measuring your pace against others. Transformation, when born from quiet consistency, is not about outshining anyone. It's about outgrowing your old self. Each quiet day adds a fraction of growth that compounds over time into something profound. Consistency turns effort into identity. At first, it's something you do. Eventually, it becomes who you are. You start to see yourself as capable, focused, and steady. This shift in self-perception is what fuels deeper change. When you begin to believe in your ability to persist, you naturally raise your standards and protect your energy from distractions. The noise of extremes of rushing, forcing, and proving no longer appeals to you. You realize that success built quietly stands stronger than success performed loudly. Transformation through quiet consistency also reshapes your relationship with time. Instead of seeing time as an obstacle, you begin to see it as an ally. Every day, no matter how ordinary, becomes an opportunity to add another layer to your growth. You stop underestimating small actions because you've seen how their accumulation transforms everything. Reading a few pages daily becomes knowledge. Exercising regularly becomes strength. Reflecting each night becomes wisdom. It's never one grand act that changes your life, it's the repeated act of returning to what matters. Even in moments of stagnation, quiet consistency holds power. There will be days when you see no progress, when effort feels meaningless, when silence feels endless. But beneath that stillness, Transformation continues invisible, steady, certain. Growth rarely announces itself while it's happening. It reveals itself only after long stretches of persistence, in the calm realization that you've become someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded than before. Quiet consistency is not glamorous, but it is sacred. It's the rhythm that carries you from intention to embodiment. It's the choice to keep showing up, to keep refining, to keep believing even when there's no applause. Loud effort may make a scene, but quiet consistency makes a legacy. One fades with the noise, the other deepens with time. True transformation belongs to those who choose the silent path, who move forward softly, but never stop moving. Stillness is not absence, it is the presence of understanding. Many people mistake stillness for emptiness, as if silence means nothing is happening. But true stillness is not a void. It's a field of awareness where the noise of life finally quiets enough for you to hear what has always been speaking beneath the surface. When you stop running from the moment, when you stop filling every silence with distraction, you begin to sense the quiet intelligence moving through everything, including yourself. Stillness is not a pause from life. It's where life begins to reveal itself more clearly. In moments of stillness, the mind stops chasing and starts seeing. The thoughts that once seemed urgent start to lose their grip, and what remains is clarity not forced, but revealed. Understanding does not always arrive with words or analysis. Sometimes it comes as a calm recognition, a deep knowing that does not need to explain itself. When the mind is still, perception sharpens. You start to notice the details that noise hides: the rhythm of your breath, the subtle movement of emotion, the quiet pulse of awareness that holds it all together. Stillness invites you to meet yourself as you are, without judgment or performance. It is not about controlling thoughts, but about watching them drift by without being pulled into their current. In that space, you realize that not every thought deserves attention, not every emotion requires reaction. Understanding grows naturally in this space of observation. It's as if the fog of constant mental activity lifts, and what was complicated becomes simple again. You begin to see that understanding was never something to be found, it was always present, waiting for the noise to settle. In the world's constant movement, stillness feels like rebellion. Everything around you urges action, speed, and productivity, yet stillness asks for presence, the willingness to simply be. This stillness is not laziness or withdrawal, it's awareness without force. It's the art of returning to center while the world spins. From that center, decisions become clearer, actions become more intentional, and emotions lose their power to overwhelm. When you learn to rest in stillness, you no longer act out of reaction, but out of wisdom. Understanding blooms in stillness because it removes distortion. When you are caught in motion, physical or mental perception becomes fragmented. You see through filters of fear, desire, or expectation. But stillness dissolves these filters. It brings everything into focus. It allows you to see the world and yourself without interference. You notice how much of what you call confusion is simply noise, layers of assumptions, past memories, and imagined futures. In stillness, these dissolve, and what remains is truth. That truth is not loud, it's calm, steady, and patient. Stillness also connects you to depth. Modern life often keeps people on the surface, reacting, scrolling, speaking, doing, but depth requires quiet. It requires the courage to face what lies beneath the surface. When you sit in stillness long enough, buried emotions begin to rise, not to hurt you, but to be acknowledged. The act of being still allows healing to occur without resistance. It reveals that what you feared in silence was not emptiness, but intimacy, the closeness of being with yourself. Understanding grows here, in this unguarded space. To be still is to listen, not with your ears, but with your entire being. It is to hear the language of intuition, to feel the rhythm of your own existence. This kind of listening doesn't demand answers, it opens to insight. The mind becomes like a calm lake, reflective, undisturbed. The clearer the surface, the more it mirrors truth. And just like water, stillness is not lifeless. It moves gently beneath the surface, carrying awareness through every layer of your being. In stillness, you start to understand time differently. You see that life is not something rushing past you, but something unfolding through you. You recognize that most confusion comes from resisting the moment, wanting to be elsewhere, someone else, sometime else. Stillness dissolves that resistance and restores you to the present, where understanding lives. The more you return to this space, the more fluent you become in the language of silence. You realize that silence is not the absence of sound. It's the foundation on which everything meaningful is heard. Stillness reveals that wisdom was never external. It was not hidden in books, teachers, or philosophies, though they may point toward it. The understanding you seek emerges naturally when you stop chasing it. In stillness, knowledge matures into wisdom because it integrates with experience. You stop collecting information and start embodying awareness. You begin to act with a calm certainty, not because you know everything, but because you trust the clarity that comes when the mind is quiet. Stillness is not absence. It is the highest form of presence. It is the meeting point between awareness and existence, the space where understanding takes shape without words. In stillness, you do not lose yourself. You find yourself beneath the noise. You come to see that what you were searching for has always been within you, waiting for the world to grow quiet enough for you to notice. The unconscious reveals its wisdom only when the mind grows quiet. Within every person exists a vast inner landscape, a depth of memory, intuition, and unspoken knowledge that quietly shapes every thought, feeling, and decision. Yet most people live on the surface of their minds, caught in constant noise, the chatter of opinions, the pull of desires, the endless repetition of worries. In this noise, the voice of the unconscious cannot be heard. It does not shout to be noticed. It whispers through intuition, through symbols, through the faint sense that something deeper is guiding you. Only when the mind becomes still enough to listen can that hidden intelligence begin to speak. The unconscious holds truths that reason alone cannot reach. It remembers what the conscious mind forgets. It processes connections too subtle to be explained in words. When the mind is busy analyzing, judging, or defending, this inner wisdom remains veiled. But when quiet settles in, when you let thoughts drift without chasing them, a new kind of clarity emerges. It is not the clarity of logic, but of insight. It feels like recognition, as if you are remembering something you've always known. This is the wisdom of the unconscious revealing itself through stillness. In the silence of a quiet mind, images, feelings, and realizations rise naturally to the surface. They do not demand your attention, they invite it. The unconscious communicates through symbols and sensations, not through structured thought. A sudden calm in the body, a recurring dream, a spontaneous idea, these are all expressions of that inner voice. But it takes patience and openness to recognize them. When you slow the mind, you give these subtle signals space to emerge. What was hidden beneath the noise begins to take shape as understanding. Most people fear silence because it removes distraction. It leaves them face to face with what they've ignored, yet this confrontation is the path to real wisdom. The unconscious does not reveal its truth through comfort, it reveals it through honesty. When the mind is quiet, it stops controlling what rises from within. Repressed emotions, forgotten desires, and unexplored fears begin to surface. This is not chaos, it is cleansing. The quiet mind allows these fragments to return to awareness, to be seen and integrated. In doing so, you become more whole, less divided. The unconscious becomes not a mystery to fear, but an ally to understand. Quieting the mind is not about forcing stillness, it's about allowing it. Effort only tightens the noise. True quiet grows from surrender, the willingness to stop struggling against your own thoughts. When you simply observe them, they begin to lose power. The conscious mind steps back, and the unconscious begins to express itself naturally. You start to sense a deeper rhythm beneath your mental noise, a flow that guides rather than demands. In this flow, creativity awakens, solutions appear, and meaning becomes clear without deliberate thought. The wisdom of the unconscious often feels intuitive. You might suddenly know the answer to something you couldn't reason out. You might feel drawn toward or away from something without knowing why. These instincts are not random, they're the language of your deeper mind. But to hear them clearly, you must reduce interference. The mind must grow quiet enough to distinguish intuition from impulse, insight from noise. Quiet gives intuition the room to breathe. It turns what once seemed uncertain into a felt understanding. The quiet mind also deepens self-awareness. When you no longer drown in constant mental dialogue, you begin to see patterns, how thoughts arise, how emotions move, how fears disguise themselves as logic. The unconscious mirrors all of this, offering images and impressions that help you see what the surface mind avoids. Through dreams, flashes of memory, or sudden emotional shifts, it communicates what logic cannot express. In these quiet spaces, you begin to recognize the parts of yourself that have long been unseen. You realize that wisdom is not something to acquire, but something to uncover. The unconscious holds the raw material of transformation. It contains both the wounds and the healing, the confusion and the truth. But it cannot reveal any of this to a restless mind. The louder your thoughts, the further you drift from your depth. Silence acts like a bridge, connecting the known and the unknown within you. As the mind grows quiet, that bridge strengthens. You begin to sense that there is an order behind what once felt chaotic, a guiding intelligence that has been working beneath the surface all along. Quiet is the medium through which the unconscious teaches. It does not lecture, it reveals. It allows you to witness the deeper structure of your thoughts, the emotional roots of your choices, the subtle wisdom behind your instincts. In this stillness, understanding doesn't come as an idea, it arrives as a feeling of alignment, as if the pieces of yourself that once felt scattered finally come together. The unconscious does not need to be forced open, it only needs to be invited. And the invitation is silence. When you stop demanding answers and begin listening, you create the space for wisdom to arise naturally. The mind's quiet is not emptiness, it is receptivity. It is the moment when you stop speaking to yourself and start hearing what has been speaking within you all along. In that stillness, you find that the unconscious was never separate from you. It was simply waiting for the noise to fade so it could finally be heard. Move with intention, not with the pressure to be seen. In a world that rewards visibility, many people begin to move not because they are guided by purpose, but because they fear being overlooked. The hunger to be noticed has replaced the quiet discipline of meaningful action. Yet the truth is, movement without intention is motion without direction. It looks busy. It sounds ambitious, but it rarely leads to fulfillment. When your actions are driven by the need to be seen, they begin to lose depth. You start performing instead of creating, reacting instead of choosing. But when you move with intention, your energy becomes focused, your steps align with purpose, and your progress begins to carry quiet power. Intention is not about speed or show, it's about clarity. It means knowing why you are moving before deciding how. When your motivation comes from alignment rather than attention, your actions begin to feel grounded. You stop chasing validation and start creating value. Every choice becomes deliberate, every word purposeful, every effort meaningful. Moving with intention transforms the way you experience time. You no longer rush from one thing to another trying to stay visible. Instead, you act with calm precision, understanding that real impact is born from depth, not noise. The pressure to be seen is subtle but exhausting. It whispers that you are falling behind, that you need to do more, show more, prove more. It traps you in comparison, convincing you that others are always ahead. This pressure disconnects you from your inner rhythm and replaces authenticity with performance. You start to measure your worth through eyes that do not see your true self. But the moment you release that need for recognition, something profound happens. Your focus returns inward, where real movement begins. You rediscover that the most powerful actions often happen in silence, far from attention. Moving with intention is an act of inner sovereignty. It's choosing to live guided by meaning, not momentum. The world will always celebrate visibility, but the deepest transformations often take place unseen. When you act with intention, you understand that progress is not measured by applause, but by alignment, the degree to which your actions reflect your truth. You stop rushing to meet others' expectations and begin listening to what your own path demands. Every step becomes lighter because it carries authenticity instead of pressure. Intention gives movement direction, while attention gives it distraction. One pulls you inward, the other pulls you outward. The mind trained on attention is restless. It acts from insecurity, trying to fill the emptiness that recognition never truly satisfies. But the mind anchored in intention is peaceful. It knows that meaning does not need an audience. It acts not to impress but to express. In that shift, your energy becomes more potent. You accomplish more with less effort because your actions flow from alignment, not anxiety. Pressure to be seen often masks the fear of being invisible. Yet true invisibility is not when others don't see you, it's when you lose sight of yourself. Moving with intention restores that sight. It reconnects you to your purpose, reminding you that what matters most is not how many people watch your journey, but how deeply you live it. The quiet worker who moves with focus and sincerity builds something that lasts longer than the applause of the moment. They are not chasing recognition because they are building something recognition will eventually find. Intention also refines your energy. It teaches you to invest it wisely, to say no to distractions that promise visibility but drain depth. You stop scattering your focus across many directions and begin channeling it toward what truly matters. This disciplined focus creates momentum that is sustainable, not superficial. The results it produces are quieter, but they carry weight. You begin to notice that your work feels more alive, your relationships more genuine, and your sense of direction more stable. To move with intention is to trust the unseen, to believe that purpose itself is enough reason to act, even when no one is watching. It's the quiet confidence that real creation doesn't need constant confirmation. You start to act from vision instead of reaction. You build from integrity, not insecurity. The outer world may take time to catch up, but inner alignment always shows its results in time. The universe tends to respond to clarity. When your intention is pure, your path unfolds naturally, even without the noise of visibility. The pressure to be seen fades when you learn to find satisfaction in the process. You realize that attention cannot sustain you, only purpose can. Recognition may feed the ego, but intention feeds the soul. When you work from intention, you are no longer trying to prove your worth, you are expressing it. The effort you put forth becomes an offering, not a performance, and in that offering you find peace. Movement with intention is quiet yet powerful, unseen yet impactful. It shapes you from within before it ever shapes the world around you. It replaces noise with clarity, urgency with calm, and insecurity with strength. To move with intention is to know that visibility is not the goal, fulfillment is. And fulfillment, unlike attention, does not fade when the lights dim. It deepens with every step you take in truth. Purpose replaces performance when you act from inner alignment. There is a difference between living to impress and living to express. One seeks validation, the other seeks truth. When you act from inner alignment, your actions no longer come from the desire to prove something, they arise naturally from who you are. Performance is exhausting because it demands constant approval. Purpose, on the other hand, gives energy because it flows from authenticity. When your actions match your inner values, the gap between what you do and who you are begins to close. In that space of harmony, fulfillment replaces anxiety and meaning replaces pressure. Performance thrives on appearance. It asks, how do I look? How am I perceived? Am I doing enough? It depends on the reaction of others to determine its worth. But purpose doesn't need an audience. It operates quietly, guided by conviction rather than comparison. When you act from inner alignment, your motivation is inward, not outward. You are no longer trying to manipulate outcomes, you are embodying truth. This shift transforms not only what you do, but the energy behind it. The same task that once felt heavy becomes lighter when done with intention instead of performance. Inner alignment begins when you start listening to yourself more deeply. It is not found through external rules, but through self-awareness. When you are aligned, your choices arise from clarity, not confusion. You stop chasing every opportunity and start recognizing which ones belong to you. Alignment is not about being perfect, it's about being honest. It means recognizing what feels true and having the courage to act accordingly, even if it goes unnoticed. When your actions grow from that authenticity, purpose naturally replaces the need to perform. Performance lives in the mind, purpose lives in the soul. The performer analyzes, compares, and seeks approval. The purposeful one listens, feels, and creates. Acting from inner alignment means allowing your deeper intelligence, your intuition, your inner knowing to guide your movements. This inner compass doesn't speak through noise or pressure. It speaks through calm conviction. The more you learn to trust it, the more your work, relationships, and goals begin to reflect a quiet coherence. You no longer need to be everything to everyone because your energy is directed toward what truly resonates with you. When you act to perform, you are always in tension. There's a subtle fear that you might not be enough, that someone else might outshine you, that your worth depends on being noticed. But purpose dissolves that tension. It gives you a sense of stability that no external recognition can provide. You stop chasing applause because you begin to understand that purpose itself is the reward. You work not to impress but to contribute. You act not to be admired but to embody what you believe in. In that state, your energy becomes magnetic. People sense the authenticity even if you never ask for their attention. Inner alignment is a state of harmony between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. It's when what you do reflects what you value. This state cannot coexist with constant performance, because performance often demands compromise, bending your truth to fit others' expectations. Alignment, however, demands integrity. It asks you to be truthful even when it's inconvenient, to choose depth over display. The more you live in alignment, the more natural your actions become. There's no strain to maintain an image because you're no longer trying to play a role. You simply are. Acting from purpose creates a different kind of success. Performance seeks short-term satisfaction. Purpose builds long-term meaning. Performance fades when attention shifts. Purpose endures because it's rooted in authenticity. When your life is guided by alignment, even challenges become part of the process. You stop seeing obstacles as interruptions and begin to view them as refinement experiences, shaping you into greater coherence with your truth. This understanding brings peace. You realize you don't need to rush or compete, because what's meant for you cannot be taken by those who perform. It's drawn to those who are aligned. Purpose also transforms your relationship with effort. When you're performing, effort feels like strain. It's fueled by tension and comparison. But when you're acting from inner alignment, effort becomes devotion. You work because it feels right, not because you're trying to maintain an image. This kind of effort replenishes you rather than draining you. It connects you to something larger than achievement, a sense of meaning that cannot be measured by results alone. You begin to feel that every action, no matter how small, carries significance when it's aligned with who you are. The shift from performance to purpose is subtle yet profound. It's a movement from proving to being, from seeking to knowing, from striving to flowing. In this shift, authenticity becomes your natural state, and peace becomes your foundation. You no longer act to meet external standards. You create from inner truth. The outer world may not always understand it immediately, but in time, the authenticity of your work and presence becomes unmistakable. Purpose replaces performance when you stop living through others' eyes and start seeing through your own. It's the moment when you choose alignment over approval, truth over display, essence over image. And from that point forward, everything you do begins to carry the quiet strength of someone who no longer performs life but lives it. True builders are invisible until their results become undeniable. Real creation rarely begins in the spotlight. It begins in silence, in the hours no one witnesses, in the persistence that goes unnoticed, in the patience that outlasts excitement. The true builder is not concerned with being seen. They are concerned with becoming. They understand that attention gained too early can corrupt focus, and praise received too soon can interrupt growth. So they retreat into their process, working not for recognition but for realization. While the world chases visibility, they chase mastery. Their work may go unseen for a time, but when it emerges, it carries the weight of something earned, not performed. Building anything real of vision, a skill, a self requires privacy. Creation needs space to mature without interference. The invisible phase is not a punishment, it is preparation. It's the season when ideas take form, when foundations are laid, when identity strengthens through solitude. Invisibility protects the builder from distraction. It allows them to make mistakes without judgment, to experiment without performance, to evolve without pressure. The true builder understands that visibility is not a goal, it's a consequence. What is real will eventually be revealed. What is forced will eventually fade. The invisible work is where character is formed. It's easy to appear committed when eyes are watching, but discipline in solitude is what separates dreamers from doers. When no one is applauding, the builder still shows up. When no one believes, they still create. This quiet endurance becomes their power. They learn to find satisfaction not in validation, but in progress itself. Every hour of unseen effort adds a brick to the structure they are building within and around them. And though no one may notice at first, those layers accumulate until the results speak louder than any introduction could. Visibility often tempts the ego to move faster than wisdom allows. But true builders resist that temptation. They know that every structure that rises too quickly risks collapse. Growth that lasts must be rooted deeply, and roots grow underground, out of sight. The deeper the roots, the taller the rise. The invisible stage, therefore, is not wasted time, it's the unseen growth that makes visible success sustainable. The builder moves with patience, trusting the process more than the timeline. They don't rush to prove, they refine to perfect. In the quiet of their craft, the builder develops a relationship with precision. They learn to care for the small details no one else notices. They shape, polish, and adjust until the work feels true. There's no applause for this part, only the satisfaction of integrity, of knowing that what is built will not crumble under exposure. The invisible effort creates a kind of quiet confidence that needs no validation. It's the assurance that what's being built has real substance. When the results finally appear, they don't need to shout for attention. Their quality demands it naturally. To build invisibly also means to be misunderstood. People may question your direction or doubt your progress because they cannot see the structure forming beneath the surface. But the true builder does not explain. They continue. They know that the most meaningful transformations happen out of sight, in silence, struggle, and persistence. They are not discouraged by being overlooked. They are motivated by what is unfolding. Their focus is not on proving others wrong, but on proving their own vision right. Invisibility refines intention. When no one is watching, the reasons behind your work become clear. You begin to see whether you are creating to impress or creating to express. True builders use solitude to purify purpose. They strip away ego until only authenticity remains. This inner clarity becomes the blueprint that guides everything they build. It ensures that when the results finally appear, they reflect integrity rather than insecurity. The visible outcome becomes an honest extension of the invisible effort. The undeniable result that follows invisibility is never sudden. It feels sudden to those who weren't watching, but the builder knows it was inevitable. What others call overnight success is simply the moment when years of unseen labor finally reach the surface. The builder doesn't crave that moment, they prepare for it. They understand that visibility brings new challenges, scrutiny, expectation, imitation, and only those who have built in silence are strong enough to carry the weight of recognition without losing themselves. The invisible phase is also where resilience is born. When you work without applause, you learn to sustain yourself. You stop depending on external motivation because you discover internal meaning. You stop measuring progress by attention and start measuring it by alignment. This self-sufficiency gives your work an unshakable stability. When recognition eventually arrives, It doesn't change your rhythm. It simply amplifies what you've already become. True builders move through life with quiet certainty. They understand that noise fades, but substance endures. They don't announce their progress because they know that time will do it for them. They build patiently, layer by layer, understanding that invisibility is not a weakness, it's strength in disguise. Every invisible act of discipline, every unseen effort, every moment of silent perseverance accumulates into something that cannot be denied. When their results finally emerge, they need no introduction, no defense, no explanation. The work itself becomes the proof. The world may only see the finished structure, but the builder knows the truth that every visible success is built on invisible seasons of effort, faith, and refinement. And that is why true builders remain invisible until their results become undeniable. Growth that is real does not demand attention, it naturally commands it. True growth is quiet, subtle, and deeply personal. It doesn't seek validation or applause because it doesn't need them. When something is genuine, its presence speaks for itself. You don't have to announce evolution when it's authentic. People sense it in your energy, your choices, and the calm confidence that begins to shape your presence. Real growth doesn't perform, it transforms. It doesn't shout for recognition. It radiates a kind of authority that words can't fabricate. It is not loud, but it is undeniable. In a world obsessed with showcasing progress, it takes courage to evolve privately. Many chase visibility rather than substance. They want to appear changed before they have actually changed. But surface growth, the kind that is crafted for display, fades as quickly as it is formed. It depends on others' reactions to exist. Real growth, on the other hand, builds itself from within. It has roots that reach deep before branches ever spread outward. It is cultivated in silence, through countless internal shifts that no one sees, moments of restraint, self-awareness, and quiet realization. When growth is genuine, it begins with understanding rather than impression. You start to see where your patterns come from, where your fears live, and where your energy leaks. You stop fighting the surface symptoms and start healing the causes beneath them. This kind of evolution doesn't happen overnight, and it cannot be staged. It happens through honest confrontation with yourself in the way you respond to failure, in how you manage your emotions when no one is watching, and in the choices you make when it would be easier to stay the same. The outer transformation people later admire is simply the echo of that inner restructuring. Those who truly grow stop needing to prove their worth. They no longer crave constant acknowledgement because their validation comes from alignment, not attention. They understand that true confidence doesn't come from how loudly you speak, but from how clearly you see. This quiet confidence creates a gravity that draws respect without seeking it. People feel the difference between performance and presence. You don't need to demand to be seen when you've become something real. Authenticity has its own magnetism. Growth that is real also teaches patience. It moves at its own rhythm, not according to the speed of the world's expectations. It unfolds gradually through repetition, reflection, and endurance. Real transformation asks for humility, the willingness to be unseen while you build, to be misunderstood while you evolve, and to trust that what is becoming will one day reveal itself in time. Those who chase attention rush their process and end up with fragile progress. Those who build quietly create something that lasts. True growth also refines your relationship with silence. You begin to realize that not everything valuable needs to be spoken about. You don't announce every change or defend every decision. Silence becomes a form of strength, a boundary that protects your process. You start to prefer depth over display, intention over impression. There's a deep calm that comes with knowing who you are becoming, even if no one else notices yet. This calm is not arrogance, it's self-trust. It's the understanding that attention cannot accelerate what time and effort must shape. When your growth is real, the world eventually adjusts.